Good morning. My name is Stacy Hicks, and I'm here with my colleagues Sarah Pinsky and Lyra Swinney from TEA, and we're going to talk a little bit about understanding and planning for National Board Certification, and we're from the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. So we're going to dive right in, and today we're going to cover talking about what is National Board Certification. We're going to talk about what the opportunity is for and with HB3, TIA, and the different funding mechanisms. We're going to talk about how you can get started for board certification and taking those next steps, and also what resources are available. You'll find many tailored resources that could meet your needs depending on where you're sitting with the certification or how you want to support candidates or NBCTs. So we just want to make sure that we're going to cover how to seize these the new opportunities available for the teacher incentive allotment with National Board Certification. So we're going to jump right in and talk about understanding the process and the benefits to board certification. National Board has been around for over 30 years. It's a voluntary process, and it's based on accomplished teaching standards. And it was developed to recognize, retain, it was designed to develop, recognize, and retain quality, high accomplished teachers. And National Board is considered the gold standard for the teaching certification. And we say, and you may hear this a lot when people are talking about National Board, that it's by teachers and for teachers. And what that means is that it was written, revised, and scored by actual teachers in those specific content areas. So every part of the certification process is touched by actual teachers, and it's constantly being revised and made better. So that's kind of what National Board Certification is. And now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the foundational beliefs and what does it mean when you're pursuing certification. So we have a document called the 5 Core Propositions, and that document was created in the early 1980s and has remained relatively untouched all of these years later. And I think it's a real testament to what's in the document, that it still stands true all these years later. So it talks about the 5 critical dispositions that we believe that every teacher should know and be able to do. So when I was pursuing board certification, this was the real hook for me. Reading the 5 core props didn't seem like that it was something outside of my reach. It felt like things that I was already doing. It felt very close to my beliefs as a teacher and what I wanted for myself and for my students. And in the statements or the propositions, seem fairly benign, but they're really important for the beliefs of board certification. So teachers are committed to students and their learning. Teachers know the subjects they teach and how to teach them. The 3rd proposition covers that teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. And I think that's become even more important and prevalent as we think about how we present information and how we understand if that information is meeting those students' needs. We also talk about teachers thinking systematically about their practice, and we talk about how teachers are members of learning communities. Again, so I think all of those 5 core propositions are kind of the foundations for what became the board certification process. One of the other foundational documents that undergirds the National Board Certification process is our content-specific standards. So we have 25 certificate areas that are across 16 different subject areas or disciplines, and they cover 4 different developmental levels of student age ranges. And so for each set of standards, it goes into and talks about what accomplished teaching looks like for that specific group of students and for that teacher and for their content. So it's tailored to that content, and it's really a very eye-opening, beautiful document. It's something that I wish that I could have had access to, or that I knew of when I was going through my teaching program. I think if I would have known better, I could have done better, and this document would have been a really nice roadmap to use for my career trajectory and my own growth as a teacher and as a professional. And the other foundational document is the double helix looking document on the right side of the screen, which is the Architecture of Accomplished Teaching. This is really a roadmap for looking at and analyzing and reflecting on lesson creation, study and then planning and the reflective process that happens both for teachers and for students. So it's a really wonderful document. It looks a little crazy when you look at it, but when you dive in, it really makes a lot of sense when you're thinking about how you prepare for your lessons and how you understand your students and how that all works together. And does it ultimately meet your goal? And then how you circle back and reflect on all of that work. So the certification process, now you know about what the foundation of work is, the beliefs that we stand on, but the certification process is actually consists of 4 different components. They can stand alone, and you can take them individually. You could also take them at more components in a year. So you could you dive in and say, I'm going to select component 1, or maybe I'll select component 1, 2, or maybe I have the time that I can dive in and do all 4 components in 1 year. The process is really flexible, which is a change from what it used to look like, when people were thinking about certification. The process has become more flexible for teachers and their lives. But component 1 is based on that content knowledge. Again, thinking about the standards that I mentioned before for the specific content areas. It's computer-based, so you actually go and you sit for a computer assessment, and it looks at your understanding of content knowledge and pedagogy. And so you sit and you're taking an assessment that has constructed response, so think of an essay, and then there's selected response, so think of an ABC selection, but really look at content knowledge. And so that is a one-time assessment center that you sit for during the process. Component 2 was actually my favorite component. It's a differentiation of instruction. Components 2, 3, and 4 are all classroom based. So this is looking at your students, their student work samples, their understanding growth. But component 2 looks at really analyzing and then planning for individual student needs while looking at and collecting and reflecting upon student work and their evidence. And so you're really diving deep into your teaching and what that looks like for kids. Component 3 is probably pretty typical of what you think about for National Board Certification. It's the video component, otherwise known as teaching, practice, and learning environment. Again, classroom based. It's when you're looking at recording and you're going to submit video of your students, of your interactions, and the way that you engage with students, small groups, and the way that students interact with one another. And both of the component 2 and 3 come alongside with a written commentary. So you're providing your reflection, your planning, your thoughts about what you're doing in your classroom and the reasons that you made those decisions. Component 4, I kind of think about as all-encompassing. It's the effective and reflective practitioner. Again, it's a classroom-based, portfolio-based entry, and it really looks at and highlights the understanding and use of the assessment to plan for and impact on student learning. So you're thinking about, what am I doing for my students? What am I doing and how am I influencing my building, also my community and the parents that I work with, and really looking at very deeply the impact that you're making and how you understand that you're making those impacts. So what is the assessment literacy piece of that? What is your evidence that you know that you're making that impact? So those are the 4 components of National Board. Again, you can take them in any order. You could take them over the course of 3 years. So really there's a lot of flexibility to the process. As far as National Board impact, we have some really compelling data over the past 30 years that teachers who engage with the National Board process, they have really great impact with their teaching, with their own professional practice, and with their students. So we see that teachers report adjusting their lesson plans to meet the student needs of individual students and their learning. We see that there are gains in deepening knowledge in the content area. And also we note that teachers are using data in new ways to assess their student progress. So all of these are anecdotal information as to what is coming out of the National Board process for the teachers who are engaging. So I'm going to give you a little break from me talking. I'm going to toss it over to our friend and colleague at TEA, Lyra Swinney. She is a former Texas teacher who's now working under the Teacher Incentive Allotment, or TIA, and has some wonderful things to talk about as far as the opportunity. So I'll turn it over to Lyra.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you all for having me today. I'm Lyra Swinney. I'm the project coordinator for the Teacher Incentive Allotment. Former teacher, former instructional coach, teacher mentor, and now really excited to be at TEA working to recognize and financially reward the highly effective teachers in Texas. We're really excited that National Board was written into this portion of HB3. As you've heard from Stacy, and you'll soon hear from Sarah, these teachers have done a lot of work to really hone their craft and become highly effective. And through HB3, we're going to work through some of the mechanics and funding of identifying and recognizing those teachers through the Teacher Incentive Allotment. So with HB3, which went through in June of 2019, compensation increases are offered to teachers who have been identified highly effective. And we've created this designation system where teachers who are highly effective or have a national board certification are given a designation on their teaching certificate. And with that designation comes funding. And through the theory of action with TIA, the goal is to attract and keep effective educators in the classroom. As we know, teacher salaries aren't the highest, and they're usually based on how long they've been in the profession. And with TIA, this gives an opportunity to differentiate compensation based on effectiveness and reward high performance. So in addition to keeping them in the classroom, the allotment is also structured in a way that incentivizes teachers to teach at the most challenging campuses, whether rural campuses or high needs, and really addresses the equity and placing highly effective teachers where they're most needed. And so a little mechanics about TIA, if you don't mind sorting that for me. Thanks. So there's a couple of ways to earn one of these designations. A designation could be achieved through national board certification or through a local designation system. Districts can submit an application for a local designation system and demonstrate that they are able to identify their most highly effective teachers. And there are 3 levels of designation. There's recognized, exemplary, and master designations. And depending on the level of designation and the campus that that teacher is working at, the district can generate, or the teacher will generate an additional $3,000 to $32,000 a year for their district. And I believe it's been messaged pretty well in the media now with the passage of HB3 that this is designed to offer a pathway to a $100,000 salary for the most highly effective teachers. And we've already had some districts across the state post salary schedules of what a master teacher could earn in their district, and it's 6 figures, which is really exciting. So once again, if it's a rural or high needs campus, the allotment is structured in a way that generates more funding. And in statute, it states that 90% or more of the funds must be spent on teacher compensation on the campus where the designated teacher works. And in partnership with Texas Tech, our team will approve local designation systems just to ensure the reliability and fidelity of how they designate teachers. We want to ensure that a designated teacher in Tomball ISD would be highly effective at any ISD in Texas. And on our website now, we'll have the link at the end of the presentation. We've created an interactive map where teachers can look, or teachers, district leaders, anyone can look and see what each allotment would generate based on each campus in the state. And there's also a downloadable list of yearly funding, and this list is updated depending on the demographics of the student population at the campus. So again, there's 2 pathways. There's the local optional teacher designation system, and that's created by districts. There's an application and approval process. The national board certification process is something that a teacher could achieve individually. They're not dependent on working in a particular district or particular campus to be eligible. They can pursue this on their own, or they can encourage their district, if they don't already have one, to pursue putting together a cohort of teachers who go through the certification process together. So once the national board certification is achieved, and we have over, I believe, 600 eligible teachers in Texas already, and many candidates in the process of certification. But once that certification is achieved, starting next school year, they will receive, meeting eligibility requirements, they'll get an automatic recognized designation on their certificate. And then depending on their campus of employment, they'll generate between $3,000 and $9,000 annually in allotment funding. And they may also qualify if they're working in a district with a local designation system. We've had districts say, wait a minute, our national board teachers, they're our best teachers. Are they only limited to recognize? And the answer is no. A national board certified teacher could be put forth for an exemplary or a master designation based on their school district's plan. So in terms of eligibility, thinking back to the theory of action for TIA, we want to ensure that the most effective educators are incentivized to stay in the classroom. So in terms of eligibility to earn a designation, they must have a valid teaching certificate for a national board teacher. And we've extended some of our eligibility requirements to allow a one-year certification for a national board certified teacher. Thanks. And they must have a valid national board certificate. And then the recognized designation will be valid through the end of July following the expiration of the national board certificate. It's a little bit of a different timeline than a district designation, which would be valid for 5 years. So that's the eligibility requirement to earn the designation. We want to ensure that teachers have the ability to, if they need to take a break from the classroom, either for home or they want to accept a different position, that designation will remain on their certificate as long as it's an active teaching certificate, and then they could return to the classroom at any time and still generate that allotment. Thank you. So in terms of generating allotment funds and getting that increase in compensation, we've set some eligibility requirements to ensure these funds are going towards teachers that are working with students. So you must be employed as a classroom teacher for 90 days or more at 4 hours minimum per day. And we've established that the teacher needs to be coded as a 087 role ID in Teams. And this should include assistant teachers, reading specialists, interventionists, inclusion teachers. And we're working with our service centers this summer to provide training to make sure some of those kind of non-traditional teaching roles are coded as 087 if those teachers are working with students. So NBCTs who are working as counselors, librarians, administrators, we know that there's quite a few options in terms of certification. They can still earn a recognized designation if they hold that teaching certificate, but unless they're coded as an 087, they won't generate an annual allotment. So an NBCT could be working as a librarian and then look on the website and decide, wait a minute, I can work at my campus and generate $9,000 if I'm a teacher and be incentivized to return to the classroom. And the last eligibility requirement is that they're compensated or will be compensated for a creditable year of service. So once again, this is the funding schedule for designation levels. So at the minimum, a national board teacher would generate $3,000 and at the upper end, $9,000, depending on the demographics and rural status of the campus. And that will be automatic. The additional designations, exemplary and master, those are only available through a local designation system. Those will expire after 5 years. And in the case of multiple designations, our system will always default to the highest designation and or the latest expiration date. So in terms of funding, when is all this starting? For districts that are currently offering compensation for their national board teachers who've identified them already, we created and we've just finished up an application process for kind of earlier access to that designation. So they've submitted a list of their national board teachers that they know are in the district that they're compensating, and they'll earn a recognized designation for this school year, for the 1920 school year, and the allotment funds will flow in September of 2020. For the automatic process, that's required a little bit more work to stand up. So next school year, beginning in April, once we verified that creditable year of service and we know where teachers are teaching, they'll earn a recognized designation in the spring that will be considered active for the 2021 school year. And those allotment funds will be flowed to districts in September. However, they'll be notified in the spring of where those teachers are teaching and how much they've generated so that they know how much funding will be there and they can get that funding to those teachers. And then once again, they must use at least 90% or more on teacher compensation on that campus. So districts are responsible for shaping a local plan on how to use those funds. And our team will be working on some resources for both teachers and districts to have those discussions regarding when the allotment funding is coming, particularly districts who are not participating through a local designation system. And one exciting thing that was written into this bill is the ability to receive fee reimbursement. So one of the barriers to national board certification, it's a huge program, it's national, it required a lot of work and ongoing systems to support it. And so the initial cost can be up to $1,900, $1,250 for renewal, $495. for maintenance of certification. So in our commissioner rules, which will be adopted on July 31st, districts can request reimbursement of fees paid to National Board, either directly from the district if they've decided to be a third-party payer and support their teachers getting that certification, or the district can reimburse the National Board teacher for expenses paid out of pocket and then request reimbursement through TIA. So to be eligible for that, the designated teacher must have earned their certification in 2019 or later. We wanted to align that with the passage of House Bill 3, and they must have a valid Texas teaching certificate with a recognized designation. So we'll have some more specifics on reimbursement available this fall, and including how to seek reimbursement through TIA. And we have a pretty detailed Q&A on our website that goes into some of the additional FAQs that come up with National Board. And I will turn it over to Sarah Pinsky from National Board. Thank you.
Thanks, Lyra. As she said, I'm Sarah Pinsky. I work at the National Board headquarters in Arlington, Virginia with Stacy, and we've had a chance to work with Lyra over the last year or so in getting TIA off the ground, and it's been a really exciting time. So next, you might be thinking, oh, this all sounds really great. How do I get started? So we're going to provide some suggested steps you might want to take on the National Board journey. And we know that there are folks on this webinar in a variety of audiences. So we've tried to provide recommendations based on different roles you might have. And we link to a lot of different resources on these slides. So we will make sure that you have a copy of the slides following this presentation. So first, to any National Board certified teachers on the webinar, the most important thing you can do is update your profile in the National Board account. This is the database that TEA uses to identify teachers who might be eligible to receive a recognized designation. So it's really important that you have that information accurate so they know where you're located and how to contact you. We'd also encourage you to join the Texas National Board Coalition for Teaching. This is a really easy step, and it might be fun for you to get connected with other National Board certified teachers in the state. The network is working to spread the word about National Board certification and to support teachers who might want to start the certification process. And they're also doing some fun social events like virtual mixers. So you can click on that link to sign up. If you'd like to get your school district or your ESC involved in National Board certification, start a conversation with them. Tell them how pursuing National Board certification impacted your teaching and why your peers might benefit from it. And if you're passionate about mentoring other teachers, we think you might like to sign up for the virtual professional learning facilitator training that will happen this July so that you can be better equipped to support your peers and other teachers on their journey to National Board certification. If you're a teacher who thinks you might be interested in board certification, there are a number of steps you can take right now. Even though you might be on summer break, you might not be in the classroom, you can visit our website, www.ndtts.org, and explore all the resources that are freely available. The first is what teachers should know and be able to do, or what we call the What Book. And this goes into detail on those 5 core propositions that Stacy spoke about earlier. The second thing you might want to do is find the standards for your content and developmental area. You can start reading through those right now. You can see if those standards sound familiar, if you already demonstrate some of these standards in your own teaching, or if there are things you might want to try differently next year to meet those standards. And if those standards resonate with you, it might be a sign that you're ready to begin your journey to National Board certification. If you're a school leader or a district leader or an ESC leader who has teachers in your area who are interested in supporting, if you have teachers in your area and you want to support them as they pursue National Board certification, there are a few steps you can take. So first, we'd encourage you to identify any National Board certified teachers in your area. There's a public directory on our website, which is linked to here, where you can actually search for NBCTs by state and by district. So you can find out if there are any board certified teachers in your area and reach out to them, get their help, and see if they might want to help become professional learning facilitators. If you think you'll have a cohort of teachers in your school district or ESC who are interested in pursuing national board certification next school year, we strongly encourage you to send someone to the virtual professional learning facilitator training course. This is a great professional development opportunity where those folks will get the tools they need to support teachers through the board certification process. We'll also be co-hosting monthly webinars with the Texas National Board Coalition for Teaching that will dive deeper into some of the topics we covered today, like the certification process, the timeline, how to start a cohort. So we encourage you to sign up and get those on your calendar now. And of course, continue to check our website as well as the TIA website frequently for updates, additional training opportunities, and further information. Finally, if you're an association member or association leader rather, and your members are interested in pursuing national board certification, we know that you're going to want to support them. So the first thing you might want to do is consider hosting an information session so your members can learn more about the national board certification process and why they might want to consider it. We would encourage you to get your members involved as their districts develop their TIA plans. And finally, we hope that you would encourage your teacher leaders to become professional learning facilitators and mentor those teachers who want to pursue national board certification. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy, who will describe some of the resources that we have available.
Thanks, Sarah. So we have a lot of resources, a lot of materials. There were plenty of links in the last 4 or so slides if you're interested in diving in, depending on your specific audience. But there are some really great general resources that might be helpful. So I'm going to go over a couple, highlight a few that I think might be really important. The first is an awareness webinar. So if you are interested in holding an awareness session to garner who's interested in pursuing board certification, whether it's in your building, whether it's in your district, whether it's at your ESC, we have materials that can help you, that can help facilitate that. So it could be as easy as clicking on the link, downloading it, and using it as is, or if you wanted to customize it for your specific needs or to include your district logo or any of those fun things that you like to do to customize, that's available for you. Sarah also mentioned the online virtual professional learning facilitator, or we call it the PLF for short, training. We have that on the books for early July. We really encourage you to get engaged if you're interested in supporting candidates. This is a really great way to understand the process, understand the ethical guidelines of supporting candidates who are pursuing certification, and really understanding the ways in which you could be a quality PLF trainer and facilitator. If you're not able to join that virtual online training, there are also Canvas courses that we have that are easily accessible that you could use and work at your own pace. We have a pre-candidacy course for facilitators, which is really nice because instead of just learning how to facilitate and support candidates, this actually gives you a lot of background information as to the foundational documents, understanding the different components, really looking at how teachers can write for the written commentary and what that looks like. So the pre-candidacy course gives you a lot of background as to what is National Board and why is it important. And then there's Canvas courses. It's a Canvas for candidates, and we also have the Canvas for professional learning facilitators. So while you could attend the virtual in person, you could also take these offline and work at your own pace. They're self-guided and they're pretty wonderful and very comprehensive, and they have a lot of materials that you can click through and learn through that could help support programming and understanding and learning for folks who are interested in supporting candidates. We also have a program called Atlas for Candidates. This was new and newly released this past year. It's a really, really wonderful opportunity for folks to see what it looks like. When I talked about component 3, there was the piece where you needed to videotape your actual teaching and the interactions that you have with kids. So Atlas for Candidates walks you through 4 cases where you can look at real live teachers in their element, going through and recording high quality videos that they submitted alongside with the written commentary. So Atlas for Candidates provides the opportunity to demystify the process for teachers who may not have a lot of experience or background with National Board. You can get in there, look at the videos, really understand what the point of the video was, look at different certificate areas, and then also just explore the written commentary and some of the examples and work pieces that were submitted. So that's a really great resource for both for candidates and for folks who are mentoring National Board candidates. We also had the monthly webinar series that Sarah mentioned just a minute ago, being co-hosted by the National Board, the Texas National Board Coalition for Teaching. They're doing a really wonderful job. They have a list of webinars that are scheduled out through January of 2021 that could help support you as you learn about the process if you're a candidate, or learn about supporting candidates. So there's a variety. We also have our directory that Sarah mentioned as well, where you can look up and find folks who have went through the process and achieved certification, whether they're in your district or whether you're looking for folks that are specific in your content area. That's a really great resource for folks. And of course, you can visit our nbpts.org. We have a specific Texas page where we're posting lots of information. We include all the information there from our partners at TEA with the TIA information. We also have the NBCT network linked there, so you can get a lot of information and updates as opportunities become available. So we encourage you to check back there frequently and we don't want you to miss out on anything. Opportunities are coming fast and furious, so we don't want you to miss out on any of the fun Texas opportunities. So those are some of the resources. We have many more. If you have questions, you can always reach out. We have a specific Texas email address that you can reach us at, and you can also reach us individually. But we're going to give a pause and have some time for some Q&A. So at this point, what questions do we have in the room?